why don't you introduce yourself and tell people who don't know you what
Oh,
you're about?
well, thanks, Cameron. My name's Lymen Chen. I'm an actor. I did not start off as an actor. I actually got into it, my God, probably 18 years ago. I was in banking and had a lot I'm an entrepreneur by nature. So, yeah, I'm in a real estate business. And, it's just something that I've always been fascinated with just from the outside. Um, I had never done school plays or anything like that. In fact, I was actually petrified of any kind of performance type stuff. It just wasn't kind of in my cards. But one thing I was really into is I kind of grew up with English as a second language, and I kind of felt television and movies at the time when I was growing up in the 70s. That's a long time ago, but in the 1970s, like,
Yeah.
I thought that was my way to kind of get engaged in American culture. And obviously, I had to really work really hard to get rid of my Chinese accent when I was growing up. Like, I didn't really pick up English too well, even though I was born in the country. My parents were immigrants, so I didn't really get down and dirty with English until I was in like kindergarten or nursery school. So
Right.
I kind of was at a little disadvantage. So I kind of used movies and television as my kind of my escape into American culture. So I've always had this love affair with movies, and I'm the guy that would sit there and quote, Rocky Horror or Star Wars, Star Trek. I would, be able to memorize any movie and kind of,
Because
play
that
that.
was the culture for you. Like that's what you knew. Yeah. Yeah. Makes total sense.
So I think when I kind of got later on in life, I got established, and I always wanted to. I kind of got very into sales, and I was become a fairly decent salesman, and
Hmm.
I kind of felt, the long story is like I would watch television, and I would see like Asian actors that were, specifically men at that time, and I would always like say to my wife, like, "Oh my God, that was just terrible. Like, I know I could do
You could do
a
better
better
than that.
job." And, just being like just complete hater.
Yeah.
But my wife was kind of like, these guys, they get to school for this stuff. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, you think it's easy, and I was like, well, how's this different from sales, and so my wife, she got me an acting class for my 30th birthday.
Oh.
And, it kind of just was my entree in, and I found it really fascinating. And then I was very lucky because at the time, going way back, this is, I think, 2000, 2002, 2001, probably 2002. Um, Mike Lemon at the time was the predominant casting director in Philly.
Right.
And I took a class with him, and he at the time had just cast Unbreakable, and he at the time was casting a television series for CBS called Hack. And I was lucky I was taking the class at the time, and this kind of just goes to your viewers that sometimes you just have to be in the right place at the right time and just be lucky.
Yeah.
Because at the time, like I kind of noticed with my wife, I said there's very few Asian actors at the time in the early 2000s, more so because there wasn't a lot of work for us, even if you were in the business. But
Yeah.
culturally, being a performer is probably one of the lowest things in our culture that you could probably strive to be in our culture. So it's very frowned upon. So it was always discouraged. It wasn't even an option for me to pursue arts growing up. Just I'm sure all the cultures feel the same way, but
Yeah.
in the Asian culture, it's very predominant just because it's very based on, especially for a male, like how are you going to provide for a family? So that's why it's always like, oh, why you not doctor? Why not go to Harvard? There's all these,
Yeah.
crazy stereotypes that you always hear about, but that's, there's some truth to it. So
Sure.
going fast forward, like I said,
Yeah.
when I went to this class, it was, I remember Mike Lemon was like, kind of like, whoa, who are you? And I said, oh, I'm here to take your class. And he was like, oh my God. And it was kind of one of those, like, I hope you can half act, because we could really use you.
Yeah.
And he I remember back in the day, he took me to this file room where at the time everyone had, there was nothing digitized. So it was like everyone had
Files,
a
like literal.
headshot. and they had them in these big ass file rooms where there's file cabinets full of stuff, and it kind of drove it home for me because he was like, well, here's the whole wall of all the white men, and here's the wall of all the black men, and so forth, so forth. And then he was kind of like, in this drawer here, if you open it and you open it up, and he's like, well, inside there's like four folders. There's
One.
Native Americans, there's Eskimos, and then there's the Asian men. And it was literally out of, it was like basically one file with maybe 5 people in there from age 18 to 75.
Right.
So, so you kind of realize that there was an opportunity there, and there weren't anywhere near the diversity initiatives there are then. But, in a nutshell, that's how I got started.
Got in. Yeah.
Yeah, and luckily he was casting this TV show. Well, he actually asked me to audition for something like later that week for what's called an industrial. So you don't know what industrial is. Basically a training video that when you watch those, you work for a company and they make you watch these horrible videos where you're like, oh my God, where did they get these actors from?
Been there, done that.
Like, well, he had me come in for one. And, I booked it. I mean, it was interesting because I was like, I don't even know what to do. And he was like, well, you literally take this and you memorize these lines and you come back and you say them. Like I had no acting experience whatsoever, but they needed an Asian man to do the role. So I did, so I luckily booked it. But not to ramble on, but basically what happened was I ended up being a background actor for probably a year and a half because of this TV show. So I kind of figured that this would be my master class. This would be my training of just watching the 2 stars. At the time it was David Morse and Andre Brower. So I was like, hey, these 2 actors are the top of the game kind of actors, so I might as well just watch them and see how they do it, and then more importantly watch all the inner workings of a set, because I've never been on a set before, which was just amazing to me. So over the course of the year I really just learned what I needed to learn, and obviously learn through trial by fire, how to audition for stuff.
And at this time, you were still in real estate. You were still running a business.
Yeah. At the time, I had the fortitude of 2002. Some of your viewers are probably not even born then, but it was during a very big real estate boom. So, business-wise, like the money was there, and obviously I was doing quite well financially. So this was actually a very nice time for me because I was kind of like, hey, you know what, I can go after some personal goals, like my bucket list of things in life. And that's why the acting kind of presented itself. I was like, this is something that I felt was such an impossible kind of task to have, and just kind of a dream situation. And I said, oh, you know what, looks like a lot of fun. And obviously it was, I'm not gonna make it seem like it was a real easy ride, but compared to most actors, I think I wouldn't trade my opportunities and my timeline versus other people.
Now, because you saw what was kind of in front of you, kind of the mountain, and having it as a dream, but still having, a good footing and a good career, do you think that kind of took the pressure off?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Because when you are auditioning for something, especially if you haven't booked a role on a TV show or, a real legit role on a, TV show or a movie, there's so much pressure. Even if you are, financially stable, it's still a lot of pressure. But I can imagine if you are worried about and that adds even more pressure, and I get that. But I think at the end of the day, you still have to be able to deal with pressure. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, I'm not going to make it seem like it took me 10 years of my career to even understand how to audition for roles. Like I just, I completely crapped the bed so many times leading up to where I'm at now. So you just kind of have to, I could tell you how to avoid a lot of mistakes, but you're going to have to just completely shit the bed, a couple of times in your career to get, that understand the process.
Right. I feel very lucky that I had a performing career before I started acting. I was a dancer, and you're literally very vulnerable in any audition. So I kind of got some of that out of my system. Now, of course, I'm dancing, and I'm not, emoting and saying sides and, having to memorize. which is different, but the same feeling is kind of there, that same pressure. And
Yeah.
there does come a point in which it just kind of opens up, where you just kind of, well, it is what it is. It's out of my control. I'm just going to go
Yeah.
have fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest acting tip I always give to people is like, I think once you, people would say this to me and I never really absorbed it. They would be like, well, it's not like you're a brain surgeon. If you, slip up, the person's gonna die, like, or they're gonna be brain damaged, or whatever they're gonna.
Yeah.
And no, as serious as we take this business, as much drama we like to make it, I think if you go into an audition saying, you know what, no one's gonna die, like Diane here, he's not gonna
No.
see your performance and just fall over and die, have a heart attack and die.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and I think once you kind of have, not just, if you truly buy into that mentality that, hey, worst case is I'm going to completely, crap myself and it's going to be the worst thing ever. And then guess what? The next, you're going to feel like crap for a day, but then the next day you're just going to move on.
Yeah.
So I think if you take that pressure off you, I think your performance, and then more importantly, I think a lot of times with these, what I realize with these auditions, especially in the beginning, like you're only saying 2 lines and you're like cop number 3 and you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, ma'am, the guy got shot in the stomach, blah, 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 and I think that you put so much pressure on it that nervousness shows. So the last thing the casting director wants to see is, oh my God, this guy's nervous.
Yeah.
He's got 3 lines. So there's no way I'm going to put him or her on set,
Yeah.
where they're just going to completely like freeze up. And
I think you're the one who told me, actually a couple months ago when I first met, they're not just seeing if you can do the role, but they're seeing that, can you hang on set with these bigger name people?
Oh yeah.
Are you going to be comfortable around other actors?
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of it. I mean, people are like, so the common thing I hear from actors starting like, well, I don't know why they don't just give me a chance. It's just 2 lines and anyone can do it. I'm like, yeah, but that's the whole thing. They can get anyone that's done 20 of those projects, and they're just gonna bet on the horse that what they bet with the devil they know. So the hardest, chicken or the egg with most actors is like, well, I need, in order for me to get work, I need to obviously get work. Well, how am I gonna get work if I don't have? So it's this like chicken or the egg that I think every actor has, and it's very frustrating, obviously, because it may take years, it may never happen, or you literally have to just literally, like I said, I get down with step in shit, I just you have to really just step in it once in a while and just get lucky. But I mean, if you look at, I think you have to step back from your own ego and say, well, I believe in myself, but you have to see from the viewpoint of the casting or the production saying, well, yeah, we're paying this guy $1,000 for the day, but if they totally freeze up and they completely screw up, well, it's not they just lost $1,000. They lost probably like $500,000 because they had to shut things down. They're not going to find an actor to do it on the spot. At least if they do, it's going to be not what they wanted, and they're certainly going to be really upset at the money that's on the line. So then that's why sometimes there's times where I'm sure I've beaten out another actor who had a much better audition, but then when they look at my credits and go, oh, well, he's worked with Scorsese or M. Night, he's worked with then they're like, well, I know he can handle the pressure. I mean, he's worked with Scorsese, so and that's just an unfortunate part of it. But it's just, but that's how all business is. It's like when I was in the corporate world, it's a lot of it's like, this Joey works his ass up, and this other guy, Cindy really just just is just articulate, and she just knows how to she just has that good vibe, and it's just all this subjective nonsense that sometimes that's what you get the job for.
So we're all stuck at home. We're all just quarantined, and I know some actors who are going crazy working on monologues and submitting stuff willy-nilly. Do you think that this is a good time to just kind of shoot your shot in the dark when it comes to like agents and things, or do you think that everything's just going to be low and just wait?
Oh no, I think you should be doing, even now at any stage, I mean, you should always be doing that regardless, but now you don't have the excuse. Like, I think the problem that most actors would have is they'd be like, well, I'm going to write, 10 letters a week to all the agents, or I'm going to go to backstage and I'm going to download all the casting directors and I'm going to send them
Mm.
headshots and resumes. And of course, every actor I know that says they're going to do it, they never do it because they're going to find something else to do. They're going to get held up. But now you have no excuse, because what are you really doing?
Yeah.
So really, I think it's just, I think every actor has to hold themselves self-accountable. Like no one cares about your career more than you. Like your agent, I mean, they got tons of clients. Yeah, they're going to help you out, but at the end of the day, they only get 10% of your money. So really, you're the one that has to do 90% of the work.
For sure.
But I mean, now you have no excuse. So then you ask yourself, like, why aren't you doing that? And a lot of times, I think what I found with most actors, I think they're just scared. Quite honestly, they have their, all of us have that insecurity that, well, if I put myself out there, then, am I really, do I have enough to kind of take the next step? Or God forbid, I think the worst thing that can happen for us actors is, especially for me, is like a lot of times I'll audition, and the worst thing that happens is I book the job, because then I go, oh shit, now I actually have to do the job. And like there's like a lot of jobs where I have to speak like other language. I have to speak Chinese or Mandarin, which is not my, I speak Cantonese, but I learned Mandarin, and I know enough to be dangerous. So I'll do the audition and I'll, learn what I need to say and I'll do it. And then I'm like, oh, we're going to book you. And here's 10 more pages of Mandarin. And you're like, oh my God, like I'm going to completely, and that happened to me on Mr. Robot. For like 2 seasons here and there, and I did the audition and I kind of like conned them enough where they booked me, and I was like, then they sent me like the script, and I was like, oh my God, like what the hell did I just do? Because I don't, they wanted me to speak with a Beijing accent.
I love that line. Know enough to be dangerous. I kind of love that. Yeah.
But that's how most actors are. We fake it until we make it, but then we're gonna get called out. But it's good because it was a great experience for me, because I really was like, okay, I've got 2 weeks to learn all this stuff, and they're good. They hired, the good thing is the other characters that were on the show that were speaking Chinese, they didn't speak Mandarin either. So we kind of all learned with the same dialect coach, which is great. I mean, but like I said, at the end of the day, when they're rolling the cameras, you're kind of like, oh my God, like, and you kind of, you kind of get the cold, I call it the ass sweats. Like you just start sweating, when you're getting ready to start rolling. But, I think, again, no one's going to die.
Right.
So you kind of have to remind yourself that. And then when you get done, like anything that you do, I'm sure like when you did a performance, you're dreading it when you're like, when you're a dancer. Mm-hmm. But then once you get done, you're going, see, I did it, and now I've, broadened my range and my bandwidth. So now the next thing I do isn't going to be as stressful, so then things become at least easier because you get the muscle memory going.
Yeah. I remember I had a friend recently who just asked me if I, for shows, do I still get nervous? And I say, of course I get nervous every single time. Even if I am doing the same show I've done 100 times, right before I go on stage, I'm always nervous. But as soon as I start it, like if I step on stage and do the first thing and maybe I mess up, maybe I all those nerves just go away.
Yeah. And I think for us, for film acting, it's like once you get past the initial rehearsal before they're blocking, trying to figure out the blocking, then once you get the first take, then, while you're doing it from all the different camera angles, by the 20th time, you just have it down like the Pledge of Allegiance, basically. It's just like you get in a groove. And that's the beauty of, you look at like me as a film actor. I mean, I was really meant to do film acting. I was never meant to do theater. Very good sprinter. Like I can do anything well for 2 minutes, where people that do like plays, they have to kind of be more of a marathon runner, where they're basically going from start to finish and bring this point all the way to the top and coming down for, let's say 2 hours.
Right.
Well, interesting thing about the film acting stuff is like, you're like, okay, well, today I'm going to do this one scene, which is completely out of order from So it's like, you know, it's like you bring, you know, you just kind of just focus on those, what's going
Right.
on in those 2 minutes basically. So it's a different, you know, I find it easier. And then, like I said, but it's, you know, obviously
Hmm.
play, you
Yeah.
know.
You're cutting in and out. You start
Yeah.
to freeze a little bit, but
Uh-oh.
I mean, I catch you. I catch you. Like it's like a second or two, but we'll just keep going. But so do you do any of your own work? Like, do you write at all, or thought about it, or you're just you take what?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm like probably the least creative person you'll ever have ideas, but I'm just not, I don't have that discipline
Right.
of writing. And, you know, I'm a very good, I think it's like you tell me what to say and I can to do.
Right.
Um, you know, no, I mean, I wish you know, obviously there's, you know, that being said, like, you know, this time off that I've had, I've been kind of watching, like I subscribe to that master, you know, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a really nice, very professionally done. Like, so it has everything from cooking to dancing to
Yeah.
DJing to acting to directing.
Now,
Watching a lot of
I've
them.
seen that too. I've seen that too. Now, have you started it and do you like it?
Oh, I love it. I think
Okay.
like, and if you're going to take an acting class and you watch Helen Mirren talk about acting,
Yeah.
talking about acting, or yeah, Marty Scorsese has
Yeah.
class on directing, and I think Ron Howard. You know, so you know you might as well learn from the mat. Truly, when you talk about master class, these are true.
Masters. Yeah, they're
I think
truly
it's a
masters.
great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've thought about it. I just think, you know, I have so many subscriptions to so many things. Like I just got an IMDb, um, and Backstage and all these other things, and it adds up. And you know, especially right now, people are trying to save money, and you know,
Yeah,
luckily, I'm a little more entrepreneur. I have tendencies. I wouldn't say I'm a purebred, um, but you know, I do have side hustles on the side, making up some money. But in your experience, I mean, you've worked with a lot of people. What are some of the more creative ways that actors can, you know, keep the ship afloat while still pursuing this?
well, I mean, for me, I mean, I mean, I can only speak for what I do.
Yeah.
I always say that what I did was probably the most financially appealing and very flexible. Like, you know, doing real estate sales to me was, you know, the same amount of time that you would spend doing any other sales type job, but the money was so much, yeah, higher. I mean, if you look at what just to do very broad math, I mean, if, you know, like if I sold a house today that settled, it was like a $300,000 house. Well, that equates to $7,500.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, you do that a couple of times a month. Well, you don't have to worry about it
Right.
too
Or
much. I
even
mean,
once a month, or even once a month, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And but think about it. It's like it's an easier. Well, and it's like I said, the reason why I transitioned to acting so well is because sales, quite frankly, is very similar to acting. It's just more improvisational. It's listening to what people want, you know, what they want, and you figure out what they want. And this, as far as like, you know, if you're selling cars, you know, someone walks onto a Toyota lot and you're a Toyota salesman, well, your job is you have to sell them the Toyota car.
Right.
And you could be the best salesperson in the world, but if they end up saying, well, I like Honda better, well, it doesn't matter how good
Yeah.
you are, you're not going to sell them the Toyota.
Yeah.
But the beauty of, in my case, selling real estate is you're really just a matchmaker. Like you don't have to be that hard salesman saying, well, what is it going to take for me to get you in this house? Because you're just a matchmaker. You get to show all the houses and say, oh, you know, they go, oh, I hate this house. You know, I wanted another bathroom. Well, okay, no problem. We'll go find you another house that has a bathroom. And then you take them to X amount of houses and then they find what they want. And then, you know, you earn your money by learning how to negotiate and dealing with the other agent and getting it to settlement, which once you sell a couple of houses, I think,
Yeah.
just like anything, the learning curve is not that steep.
Yeah. And getting started is not hard either.
But the key thing when it's compatible with acting is because once you get started, like, if you have an audition in New York, like you can always say, well, I can't show the house today, or I can have one of my friends, one of my associates show you the house.
Right.
There's flexibility. Whereas if you work a typical 9-to-5 job, I mean,
Can't.
you can't do it. And that's the problem with most actors. It's like, if you have a regular job, which is fine, you have to have a job.
It's life.
But if you only have 2 or 3 weeks vacation, well, you would spend that just on auditions alone.
Yeah.
So God forbid you actually book a job. Like, how are you going to do your job? How are you going to do your real paying job? I mean, so that's why I think why most people are bartenders or waitresses or waiters, because that gives you the flexibility. But I think for me personally, like I've always been a big advocate of real estate because it's the same amount of work, if not even less work. Because once you get established, all my friends that I grew up with, all the friends I went to high school, college, all my fraternity brothers, they, for years would just call on me. So it just becomes like it's more of a network based.
Yeah. And same thing with acting. I mean, it's all about the connections you make.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
and I think that it goes hand in hand. I think that's the key thing that if you look at getting back to the whole acting thing, I mean, I think I told you this, like where I lacked in acting ability, especially in the beginning, I made up for it because I was a Wall Street, type, came from a Wall Street background, was a salesman obviously for decades. So just learning how to deal with people and just having common sense of how to deal with the business of show business is the biggest death trap for most actors. Most actors that I know, they can get very bitter about why they haven't, made it. And when I watch them on set, it's very clear why they haven't made it, because they themselves have self-sabotaged themselves way more than anyone else could do that to them.
And it's very small things. It's the way you work with people. It's not knowing how to communicate certain things, and then it comes out in bad behaviors. And I mean, I know a lot of actors who are extremely talented but don't understand the business, and they take the business and they try, thinking that their talent is going to speak for itself, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest conflict most artists have is they feel like it's a sellout because it should solely be on their talent.
Right. And it's not.
Like, well, that's all fine and good, but you're talking about show business. Like if you want to go into film and TV, then it's show business. It's really like, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty, which just always gets people upset, artists like and actors upset, break down what television film acting is, especially television acting. It's like, well, you're just trying to, all you're there for is to help sell ad space for the network. I mean, you're an artist, but really the ultimate goal why this show is on TV is because they want the show to be successful. So Procter and Gamble or Miller Lite is going to buy, this ad during the commercial break of, CSI New York. And, I think but you might not agree with that, but I think if you have to step back from your artistic side and at least acknowledge that that's one component of how this works, so I think you have to, so if you're not even willing to, acknowledge that part of that it's a business, then, perhaps this isn't the right thing for you. Like, yes, be an artist, do theater or, do this or that, or, that's fine. But I've always embraced this as a business, whether it's pro or con. I mean, I think I use my business skills a lot when I'm on set. I think I told you, like, I have a real thing about remembering names. Like that's the thing I learned in college was like, I took a course called Dale Carnegie. He's literally, it's 100-year-old class where he basically just emphasizes how in business, and in this case, shows everyone's driven by their ego. Like it's all about them, and especially with actors, it's all about their own ego. So when you go to directors and producers, then it's really about ego. So just simple stuff like remembering their name, like just little things that a lot of your viewers never even think about because they're just focused on the role and stuff. But when I go to an audition for a network show, like I'll know who the director is, I'll know who the writers and the producers are, and I'll do my homework on those people, individually, like, where they went to school, what other TV shows he did, like how did he get started,
Yeah.
just for the fact that I would at least understand where they're coming from in the show, and then more importantly, when I do book it, then I have a familiarity with them. So then
Right.
when I'm on set, even though I, knew that he had, a son and a daughter and they played soccer. Well, not like I'm purposely making a conversation about that. It's just, but at least I know that,
Yeah.
and I kind of know them pretty well. So then the conversation kind of turns into like personal stuff, and then we find that we can relate, on a level outside of, the episode. And these conversations might not happen at all,
Yeah.
but at least I myself am totally prepared for that. Whereas that's really extreme,
Yeah.
next level stuff. And some people will probably say, "Oh, I'm not into that." Well, it's kind of like, but
Yeah.
you would be more so flattered yourself if someone
Exactly.
was engaged with you and just could relate to you and got to know you on that level, because that's your own. So at a minimal point, just the fact that you would remember the sound person's name,
Yeah.
or the assistant director, you would know their name, just when you have conversations. And even like even like now, I mean, I haven't done background work for probably 18 years, but when I'm on set, I make sure I try to remember even the background actor's name. So when I come up to them, I say, "Hey, Cameron, hey, John, how you doing?" And, you can see it really makes a difference in their
Yeah.
day, especially if you're like I remember what it was like being a background actor, like, so much less, so, just the little thing, it's all the little things,
Yeah.
but the private home, there's a lot of, I think I've got probably like 50 credits, from as far as TV shows or movies I've done. And I've gotten a lot of roles where when it came down to it, they were like, "Well, I saw that when you auditioned, I looked at your resume and I saw that you worked with so and so, and I'm friends with him. So I called up
Yep.
so and so and said, hey, what do you think of Lyman? He just auditioned for me." And my friend said, "Hey, he's great." I said, "If you want to have an easy 16-hour day of just laughing and having a great time,
Right.
he's your guy."
And you show up and know your lines on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, these are long days, and last thing you need is some asshole
Yeah.
on set that is just a diva, or just all about him or her and just not a nice person. So you find that when you're competing for any of these roles, whether it's cop number 3 or a guest star, you're always in a tie with
Yeah.
2 or 3 people at least. I mean, if you even get to that point where you're into this, it's a decision time between you or 2 other people. Well, stupid stuff like that guy calling up the director on the show that I did 4 years ago and says, "Hey, what do you think of Lymen Chen?" And they're gonna go, "Oh, he's a great guy. You'll love him. He's treats everyone so well." Well, guess what? You just got the job because of that.
Yeah, I can speak to that firsthand because I've, even though I haven't been acting very long, I've been in a few rooms in which it was me and maybe 2 other guys for a role. And luckily there are databases out there where you can research and look at the shows and you can find who got your role. And each time that I've been able to look and do some research, I went, "Oh, that person has worked with so-and-so," or "they have 10 more credits than I do," or, "Oh, that one girl who was in the casting room, that's who got it because they wanted a female. They just made a choice." Like, so a lot of it's out of your control, but like you said, you can kind of create that serendipity to, just know the person's name, be a nice person. Like it's
just a feel.
Yeah.
It's just like when you and I met at our agency party in Philadelphia, and it's like, within 5 seconds, whether this person is engaged or is a nice person, generally speaking. And then obviously as you build on it, then obviously you and I got along very well. And, it's just, that's how, and I mean, we all know 10 people at least that you meet them and they're all about them. It's very clear that it's just,
Yes.
oh, they're just trying to size you up and how they can help you in the business or
Yes.
what they do, and how they find out what you're doing or who you are is how they're going to respond in kind,
Hmm.
whether or not they're going to invest any time talking to you. And
Right.
no,
Yeah.
I see that so much, and I find that that's just so, that just drives me nuts when I just see, when, especially if you go out to LA for any period of time, that's basically, you
Every
run into that so much,
yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just so like, it's just maddening. But you can see why. Like I said, most actors, they do more damage to themselves than any casting director or any any audition they could do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just they they're non-starters from the beginning.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how pretty you are or how good your method is or who your teachers really are. Um, you know, empathy goes a long way.
Sure. Well,
You
and
know,
also, even if you do have a ton of talent, after a while it catches up. If you're
right?
not a nice person, it's going
Yeah,
to catch up to you.
yeah,
You can be like, there's obviously some actors are just that good that people are saying, well, you know what, I got to deal with it because he brings X amount to the box office, or she is a big star, and we need this person to carry the cast. Well, that's fine, but even those people, it catches up to them.
it catches up, and you see that with big names in these past few years, like the whole Me Too movement,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm not going to name names, but people in the know who I'm talking about,
Oh
and
yeah.
these people have been getting away with being that type of person for so long, and it's not just men, it's not just women, it's just a group of people who yeah, but like you say, it just catches up to them, and
Well, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's just the golden rule. I mean, at the end of the day, when in sales we have the golden rule, so it's just kind of like, as long as you treat people the way you want to be treated, well, you can never lose,
exactly.
you know. And I've kind of done that with everything I've done because there's no reason to be a jerk. I mean, especially like, prime example is when I was a background actor, my first year of doing background acting on that show Hack. Yeah, there was another background actor that I got to be friendly with, and we just, no attitude, just got to know each other, had fun. He moved out to LA, and I just lost touch with him. But then every time I went to LA, I would end up going. There was a Philly sports bar in Santa Monica that we used to go to for Eagles
Yeah.
games. So every Eagles game, we would go to this bar, and then everyone that's in the industry would be at this bar. Um, and we just had fun, this and that. Well, lo and behold, I didn't even know this. He became a producer, and then one day he called me up and was like, "Hey, I'm producer now, and I saw that you just did a movie with so and so, and I'm doing this movie, and I was just wondering if you wanted to do it with." And I was like, "Oh, absolutely, I would love to do that." But you know, it was just, we were talking like 10 years later. So it's just, these relationships, you just never know
Yeah.
who that PA that you mistreated, becomes a Martin Scorsese. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know. I mean, so it's just, there's no reason to treat anyone poorly.
Exactly. And yeah, yeah. I mean, it is what it is, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people get their ego wrapped up into this, but now moving forward, I'm all about advice, and we have some great advice that you just spat out there. When you're starting off, do you recommend that people, work in, with coaches and things like that, or in your case, you were a background actor for a year? Do you think it's case specific to the person, or have you seen one road kind of be more successful?
No, I think the beauty of this business is it's not like you're a doctor or a lawyer and you have to follow this very distinct path of getting certified or getting your medical degree. I mean, there's, you can't just wing it and say, hey, I just showed up and went online and now I'm a brain surgeon. The beauty of acting is you can be like me and just decide to do it when you're 30, never did one damn thing,
Yeah.
or you can train. You've been doing plays since you're 5 years old, and this is your life, and you went to Juilliard and whatever, and we all have the same goal. So I think it's whatever works for you. I think as long as you're doing something And I think as long as you do it with a strategy and a plan where you say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do
Yeah.
long term. This is what I want to do. Like, I think like there was a certain point when I was doing background acting. There was well over a year into it, I finally said, you know what, I think I've learned everything I need to learn from this. Like,
Mhm.
because it was just, I, I,
Yeah.
I felt that, even if I did for another year, like what else was I going to get from it? And that was a personal decision for me. I did background work, but I also took classes. I took classes at Mike Lyman, had a coach early on, just to kind of help me, find my way. And then ultimately, once you actually start working, on a consistent level, then really that's the ultimate experience, that's the ultimate practice you need. And once you start auditioning frequently, then that's your practice. So you might, some people, even trained actors, still do plays, or they even still take classes. I personally haven't taken classes for a very long time.
Yeah.
Whether or not helping or not, that's obviously neither here nor there. But it's just a decision I made that says I only have time for this and that, two kids,
Yeah. You have a life.
so you make decisions. But I think a lot of it though is you have to, in your mind, say this is what I want to do and this is my goals for the next 5 years. Like this is like you have to put these goals in place. I think most actors that I know are very good checkers players. Like they're very good at playing checkers, but in business and in acting, really, I think if you become a very good chess player, like you
Yeah.
have to look way down the line. And a lot of it, like I said, you have to look way down the line with relationships. Like I have relationships, that were 10 years in the making where I never asked. Like I have a lot of friends that were writers, and we were in the same agency in LA, and we were just friends. And the easy move, and for most actors would be like, hey, can you like hook me up, put me in this and that. But I was like, I'm never going to ask them for one thing, because if they
Yeah.
want to use me, they'll ask me, but if I ask, then it's almost a bad rub, because they're like, what, you might get something out of it, but they'll kind of hold a grudge against you for
Right.
putting them in that situation.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these relationships were like me, making moves, or just me doing my job, and making sure they knew that I was doing my job and where I was progressing. And then 10 years down the road, one of my friends who was a writer became a showrunner, and he, had me read for a show, and I got it. And then I subsequently was on 3 of his shows.
Yeah.
But, this is 10, 14 years. Like, when I met him, it wasn't like I was like, hey, I'm gonna, you like to just say, 13 years down the line, you just have to put the things out there, and then basically, hope that, your work is going to pay off.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were talking about, think about, 10 years down the line, I've been following Bonnie Gillespie. I don't know if you know that name.
Yeah,
She
I
helps
do.
with a lot of actors, and she always talks about that North Star, and to kind of reverse engineer all the points from that, dream role, that dream situation you want to be in. And maybe you're on some sort of dream role, but who's your agent before that, and
Yeah,
manager, and then before that, what are the next tier underneath that, and then what are the roles and the kind of things you would go for? You're a guest star, and then before that you're a co-star, and then your
yeah.
background before that. So how, in your experience, did you get to that point where maybe you had some background roles and maybe a thing or two here and there, and then how did it change from that to you're a working actor? How did you navigate that?
Well, I think a lot, again, it's just, you have to just ask yourself, what are you willing to, what are you willing to spend your time on? And
Hmm.
is this work? And I think a good example is, transitioning from background work and just saying, I'd rather not work at all
Yeah.
than do it again, because, I'd rather, because, it's an easy crutch for actors to say, I just want to stay relevant. I want to still do what I'm doing. So the hardest thing is to say, well, I'd rather just not do that again and just focus on this, even if this doesn't come for months, years. I just can't deal with another
Yeah.
day. I'm not going to get anything else out of doing that. And
Hmm.
if I need to do that to validate myself as an actor, then maybe I'm just, I've got the wrong mentality. And I think that's how I was when I was deciding to go for my SAG card. And I had gotten my eligibility really early on, like I think within 4 months of me, being an actor, I think I got my eligibility, and my agent was like begging me not to get my SAG card because she was like, Philadelphia's a very non-union town.
Yeah.
You haven't really gotten anything yet. There's all these industrials and commercials that you could do, which you wouldn't be able to if you joined the union. So I actually held out for 2 years. But then, like I said, I hit a point where I said, you know what? I'm not going to learn one more thing from
Yeah.
doing a non-union commercial or doing a non-union training video.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to, there's nothing else to learn, and I'd rather not work, ever again,
Yeah.
and that's, I think for every actor, they have that
Mm.
threshold, but you have to be secure in yourself to say, you know what, like if I've got it, it's going to work out, and I'd rather spend my time preparing. I think a lot of it is just, are you going to be ready for when you do get the call and you get the audition?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to be able to
Just,
get it? And then,
yeah.
some actors, it just never happens, or they have a chance, but they weren't ready and they blew it. And then the chance might not come again. And, I think that's the hardest conflict for most actors, is getting that, getting the break is the most challenging and arduous, thing for an actor. Like I was very lucky. In fact, I think I told you I was pretty much going to get out of the business, like in 2005. So I'm like 3 years into the
Yeah.
business. And, I was kind of like, I've kind of done everything. I thought I kind of reached my max. And then just the, as far as film and TV acting, one thing I think I told you is like as a performer, when you're a dancer or an artist or a theater actor, like you have to be able to do multiple things, like triple threat, be able to be versatile. This and what
Yeah.
you learn
Yeah.
television film is like you just need to know what you're good at. Like what are they going to see you as, and just know what that is. And
Right.
that's all you're trying to do is get your break. So if you look like a guy that's a blue collar guy, then you just need to focus on that and just get that stuff down. And for me, I mean, I was very lucky. My big break was I worked with Scorsese in The Departed, and quite honestly, if I didn't get that role, I'd probably been done decades ago.
Yeah.
But it was one of those roles where they needed a big Asian guy. They needed a guy that spoke perfect English, but then they needed a guy that was able to speak Cantonese.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those lightning in a bottle things where I had all that,
It worked
and
for
there
you.
weren't really any other real actors that had that skill
Right.
set and worked anyway. And so I just got that role, and just I had been going 3 years without even getting a one-liner in anything. Like just literally go to auditions, nothing, 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 nothing. I did play in commercials, but I hadn't gotten any TV or film roles. But that's kind of the stepping shit
Yeah.
that every actor hopefully gets, because once you get that, then it just opens up the door. Because once I did that, then all of a sudden people are like, well, hey, it's kind of like, it's so, the business is so subjective. It's like if you just showed someone a painting and said, oh, what do you think of this painting? And they're like, oh, it's garbage. Like, what the hell? Like, I would never do that. Oh, it's one of Picasso's first paintings. Then they go, oh my God, that's worth
I love it.
$3 billion, because it's so subjective,
Yeah.
So I think that's what unfortunately happens with casting directors and with directors and producers. They're going to see performances, and they're going to see 50 of the same character performing, and then they're looking for things to kind of help themselves, put you outside the box or take you out of the box. And unfortunately, they're going to look at what you've done. So if you have a credit like that, then it becomes, it legitimizes you quite a bit. So
Yeah, no,
if
I totally get it. And that's a way to separate yourself from the pack. Now, how do you because a lot of this is about, you know, representation too. Like you can't just walk into
Yeah.
casting. So how did you create leverage in order to get those higher tier agents to look at you?
Well, I think for me, like I said, I think it's still the same thing. Like you have to play to your strengths. So for me, it was like, hey, I don't have any big guy. I speak, you know, I'm obviously Asian, you
Yeah.
know, but I speak, you know, Chinese, and you know, but I also
Yeah.
speak English, and I can do the accents, and also, so at least to get an agent, at least I played to my strengths, and you kind of have to go from a business point of view of saying the agents make money if you book. Like
Yeah.
you could, you know,
Yeah.
so they're looking from the business point of view, saying, "Oh, why would I have Cameron? Why would I have Lyman?" And for me as a salesman, I'm like, "Well, you want to go with me, even though I haven't booked anything yet, because I'm young, I'm hungry, you know, I've got these niches that although I don't fit the box for many things, but if they're looking for this thing, I'm your guy, and I'm going to book it." You know, well, that's interesting to an agent who goes, "Well, I don't have anyone that speaks Chinese, so I might as well bring this person on, because you know it's going to come up, and then instead of me having 50 people to submit, I have this one person that I can submit where I would have never had that person." So like for you example, it's just like, hey, I'm a professional dancer. Well, I mean, 999, you know, other actors don't have that skill
Right.
set. So that agent's going to say, well, you know what, you know, he's got great look, this and that, but he has this skill set. So when they have that Law and Order SVU episode where it's the, you know, New York Belle, you know, whatever,
Right.
then you're it. I mean, that's it. You're in. You know, and you
Yeah.
could have auditioned for 50 other roles of cop number, waiter number two,
Yeah.
this, that, and that, but that's your wheelhouse. Like you're gonna, odds are your break is gonna come because of that skill set that you have that no one else has, and they have no other choice but to pick you or three other people instead of other role, waiter number three. There's 10,000 people they could pick from, and it's
Yeah.
really throwing darts forward. But when you play to your strengths, then there's only like three or four people that can fill that role. So, you know, that's how you get the agent, because you have to make it into what's in it for them.
Yeah.
Everything that you do as an actor is always looking at the, instead of looking at yourself with your ego, because that's all of us performers have that ego, and it's all about us. Is you have to turn it around and say what's in it for them. Like, why would they want to choose me? Like, what can I say to them or do that's going to go, you know what, I'm going to go with this person versus everyone else.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes perfect sense, you know. And you know, it is a business, so you kind of have to treat it yourself as a businessman, only you're the
And
product. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, great stuff. Now, is there anything else that you would like to say to younger perform or even people who are older and just starting out?
oh, I mean, I think you have to love it. I mean, if you're doing it, I mean, I won't lie to you. When I first got into it, I was like, well, you know, I just want to be famous, and I want
Yeah.
people to, you know, a lot of it was just ego driven, where I
A
was
lot of
like,
us are like that. A lot of us,
oh yeah,
you know, just want to say, "Hey, I want to work with Scorsese. I want to be,"
oh yeah.
and you know, I get it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it too is like, you know, I mean, I think, and, you know, I had a chip on my shoulder. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I grew up in a predominantly white and pretty, you know, backwards, you know, at the time in the 70s, where, you know, they're not gonna really give an Asian kid that much of a shot at anything.
yeah,
So I kind of felt like I had something to prove, but you know, but this was more, at the end of the day though, I just loved it. Like, you know, you know, throughout my whole professional life of not being an actor, but just in the corporate world and the sales world, I'd always try to like do the least amount of work, but you know, I would obviously be successful, but I'd always try to figure out, you know, how to do the least amount of time and this and that. And where I realized why I loved showbiz is when I think I told you my best day ever was my first day as a background actor.
mm,
It was like a 16-hour day, and I was just so into it. Like I just loved
yeah,
the fake diner that was. They made this diner out of this box in this old condemned civic center in West Philly, which is now where like I think UPenn Hospital is.
yeah.
And when they called it a wrap after 16 hours, I was like, oh my God, I don't want this to end. Like, I just love this. And if you knew me before this, you would never see me work 16 hours doing anything, ever. So, you have to love it because you're not ultimately doing it for the money. I mean, you're not, this is not something that you're doing to be rich. I mean, there's, and it's become very obviously prevalent in this COVID-19 that, all these actors, like, they were obviously already heavily, their side gig was probably working in a restaurant or at a bar, so they're doubly screwed. So
Yeah.
it's very apparent now. But I think, you obviously have to love what you're doing, but then you also have to just say, you know, it's a very finite life. Like, you have to kind of just enjoy the journey, and whatever successes you have, you just enjoy it that day. Like, every time I work on a set, I kind of treat it as this is the last time I'm ever going to work on a set ever again. And I treated it as such, like, this could be the last time I ever work. And
Yep.
that's how I was when I did The Departed.
Yep.
And I went to the red carpet and all that stuff. I was like, I'm just going all out because it's over. After this is a one trick pony, and my career is over. But I got to do this, and I can say I did it. And then obviously, if another gig comes, then great. But I think you have to just enjoy the moment, and don't fixate on what other people are doing. You're just competing with yourself, and if
Yeah.
you're doing what you're doing, that should be enough for you.
Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't have to worry about what other people are doing if you're already loving it.
Yeah,
I mean, like, case in point, you came from an immigrant family, and you probably had tons of people looking at you saying, why are you doing this? Like, why
oh
aren't
yeah,
you,
what a
focusing on
waste of
your
time.
career? And now I'm sure that, they're saying else, different things now because they've
Yeah,
seen what you've done.
if you listen to all the naysayers, you would never get to this point. But the flip side of that is there's a certain point where you have to say, well, this is detrimental to my relationships, like my family, my spouse, or my children. You do have to
Yeah.
step back and kind of understand, because you do need a certain level, especially in the beginning, where I was obsessed. Like, I was like so driven to try to make it. Where in retrospect, when I look back at it, thank God my wife was very supportive, but she put up with a lot of bullshit, quite honestly. And I think any other spouse would have probably said, this is it, this shit is over. But she was being very supportive, and thank God, because it. And like I said, I'm not gonna make it seem like I have this unbelievable career, but I'm very thankful for what it's happened, and it's way more than I ever dreamed it would be. So, like I said, if you told me 20 years ago when I started this that I would even have what I have,
Yeah.
I think all of us would have just laughed
Yeah.
about it. So again, that's the whole thing. Is just appreciate what you have, and just understand that it's just a very long journey.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for all this.
yeah,
Yeah. I
great.
mean, well, best of luck to you. I hope that you weather the storm. And, thanks so much for sitting down.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, thanks for having us.